And now, your Pickle Gals.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to season 2 of the Pickle Gals.
Ooh.
Moves, job changes, not one hurricane, but two hurricanes could not prevent us from getting back on here. So here we are. My name is Krishan Spackman,
And I'm Rachel Roney,
and we are the
the
Pickle
Pickle
Gals.
Gals. Yeah, I mean, season 2, it's been a wait, but it's going to be worth it, I think. We have some awesome folks that we're going to be chatting with. One that we have today that's got a ton of energy, and I'm super excited for everybody to get to know her more if they didn't know her. Her background and story is just really interesting. So
Absolutely. I cannot wait. I will tell everyone now, get some popcorn. It's going to be entertaining. So without further ado, I'd like to welcome our very first guest. Hello. So thank you so much, Miss Kim McGuire of Ignite Management Group. We are so stoked to have you as a guest, but really to have you as our first guest for season 2. No pressure. No pressure.
I know that feels like big shoes to fill, but I think I'm up for the challenge.
Fantastic. So you are a staple in the pickleball community. I can't imagine that someone doesn't know you. But in the off chance that they don't, why don't we just get started with tell us a little bit about your background, basically the then and now of Kim McGuire.
So it all started on a cold, dark night many years ago. So obviously, Kim McGuire, where do we all begin? So I've been in pickleball about 5 years, but before that, I had a pretty heavy career working in government contracting. So I managed nurses and doctors and specialized mostly in mental health contracts for the DoD and DOJ. So still have that venture happening in my life, and so it has served me well transitioning into pickleball. So I started my job at 17 years old. So I got an early start. Bought my first house at 19. So, an underachiever by nature.
Yeah, sounds
Well,
like
that's
it.
what I'm feeling like right now.
So kind of catapulted me into adulthood. Had a great family growing up. I come from a military family. My dad served proudly 28 years in the Air Force and 2 military brothers. So the culture of that provided me so many life skills moving forward in business. And I did that and climbed every mountain in that career path, and just have had an amazing experience working with some of the top military folks. So a very personally satisfying career path. And then I have 4 children, two that came to me naturally and 2 that I began to love about 4 years ago when they were introduced to me. And they are fantastic kids. But my oldest son, Joshua, he had a bit of bad luck medically. So he had a ganglion neuroma tumor that turned our lives upside down for about 5 or 6 years, and we kind of hold our breath still every year at annual exams. He's got one coming up this week, so we're thinking positive thoughts about all of that. But after he got through the hump of that, I had all this time on my hands because I was like an FBI agent. I was scouring the internet and flying everywhere and trying to ensure that he had the best options and the best outcomes. And when that kind of resolved itself, it left this window of time, a welcome window of time in my life. And I found the game of pickleball. They were playing in my neighborhood, and I end up going up by the courts, and they said, "Hey, you want to play pickleball?" And I was like, "I don't know what you're talking about, but I join in easily to things." So, and the rest kind of became history. I started playing locally, and I luckily got signed with Head, and then I started working towards being a coach, and continued to grow, kind of changed directions from paddle companies. And then a couple years after that, I started helping a friend of mine, Sarah Ansberry, out with some of the business.
Yeah,
I
who's
believe
that?
it. She's like this old lady in pickleball.
Yeah, not a
She's
bad
younger than me, so I can't really say much.
yeah, not a bad person to be connected with.
She's not. She's all right. You know, I think I like to be the humbleness in Sarah's life. So, you know, she's pretty well known. I always say that she's a Hall of Famer by far. She's got a well developed career that happened way before me, but I like to believe that I enhanced her experience in the pickleball.
There you go. I like that.
So once I met Sarah, you know, I had all this. It's funny because pickleball, we have all these people coming out of other careers and coming into pickleball. And so all these transferable skills you get to see, and you get to work with just the most interesting group of people that had successful careers before pickleball. So that was no different. So I started helping her out. And then, you know, being again the underachiever I am, I'm like, this can't be a hobby. No. We need to start an entire business around it. So I launched, I had a couple other players come to me and say, hey, can you help me with representation and things like that? And so I officially launched Ignite Management Group, which I'm super proud of because it's something done on my terms, finally.
Fantastic.
We currently have 24 signed athletes. My goal of January, we had 12 ending out December 2024. And my goal for 2025 was to have 24. So we have met that goal here in the month of April. Pacing has never been my strong point. We're in a sprint everywhere we go. So the company is comprised of 3 different departments. We have player management. We run pickleball tournaments, which is still, you know, kind of the bread and butter of pickleball as you're building players. And then we also do marketing for small businesses and for players that aren't necessarily on a pro route, but they still want to become relevant in the pickleball community.
Okay. So these contracts that you're doing kind of comprise different elements based on what the player's goals are, or how does it work when you're kind of putting those things together?
It's interesting. so player goals, you think they're all kind of geared towards the same path, but they're really not. So it starts with, what does the player define as success? Is success to you getting a tour contract? Is it becoming a household name? Or is it becoming financially stable as a pickleball professional? And believe it or not, they rarely correlate those things together. And so I'm big on less glamour, more stability. That's just, I think, intelligent business. So you're really building a brand and you're teaching players how to become, you know, the business manager of that brand. So there's a lot of like, I think I'm a counselor in a lot of ways and a motivator. And then you're also connecting them with opportunities that make sense to reach those goals. So, you know, some people, their goal is, I will define myself as successful if I have a PPA contract. And then some people will define themselves successful if they can walk away from corporate America and sustain a living in pickleball. So that's, you know, depending on their goal is how we match them up. It's teaching them, you know, the ins and outs of social media, the relevancy of social media. You know, you have a lot of younger players, they are geared towards Instagram and TikTok. But I always tell people, like, we're still doing business in Facebook because we are still, the people purchasing paddles are still in that age bracket where, well, it's our age bracket. We thought we were all hip when we started Facebook. So, you know, trying to ensure that they understand what makes a good, well-rounded profile. So I always say that, like, there's 3 pieces to it. You're showing enough play where you're relevant as a player. You're letting people in your life enough so that they can build some common ground and common interests with you outside of pickleball. And then 3, your marketing product that gives you street cred in the sport. So if you can get a healthy balance of those 3 elements, then you have a nice, well-rounded social media, which then turns into ROI for companies and you become more attractive. So winning isn't everything.
Both sides of it though, right, Kim? So do you already have, I think I know the answer to this, but maybe not everybody does. So do you already have, like, I've got partnerships or agreements or contacts with these 12 businesses, sponsors,
2,000 businesses.
What's that?
at 2,000 businesses. So that was the one thing super naturally to me is, growing up as a military kid, you're the new kid. So when I go into a meeting, I'm not saying, hey, my player's great. I'm looking like, what's their goal and how do I meet it with this player? And so you have to be able, you're almost halfway representing that company as well and their best interest. Yeah. And when you do that in a genuine manner, trust is built. I think genuineness and having that high integrity separates you from, the typical run the mill business that's coming in. They're coming in by the swarms into pickleball. So
absolutely. So then so you have these companies. That's amazing. First of all, congrats, because 2000 is insane. I was thinking 2025. So then those companies have a goal too, or an agenda. Like, how do you take that player and how do you relate those goals to a product or a business or service to marry them?
So it's kind of just doing the same thing reverse. So you look at a small company that's just starting out. So, it's relatable because I'm too building a business. So I understand where your struggles are coming into that. So being able to relate to that and understanding, hey, not only do they not have the capital to go and throw money at every pro that's coming out, I don't think it serves their best interest. And so, and I'm very transparent about that. I'm like, you're not benefiting at this stage. You're going to benefit more from influence, from, ambassadors, things like that. And that's, again, if you're genuine in what the goal is, because the more successful they are, the more successful my player will be with them. Sure. If I can get anyone a contract, but if that contract is only good for a year, I'm not setting my player up for long-term success. I'm creating a revolving door, financial instability, anxiety, and everything else, if I can't give them stability. So when we look at paddle contracts, I'm looking to build a personal relationship with our representative, that company. Brands will, when they talk with me, that you'll always hear me say the first thing, tell me about your brand. I want to be able to speak intelligently. What made you all? Why is, what is the connection? Because they all have a story, and that story is really important because we're not just matching money here. I have young players I work with. They need to be in environments that continue to help them grow as a professional. They give them space to have failures as a professional as they continue to learn this game and learn the pace of this game from the business side. So putting players, I've got certain players that are matched with a more family-oriented paddle company. And then those couple players that are like dead inside, I put them with the mainstream ones and we're good to go. You're trying to match what the player needs, not just financially. It's not just about the bottom line. Yeah. What helps them.
Yeah, you mentioned about the young players, and I don't want to sweep over that. You've recently signed several young players.
Yes, and there's more coming. I probably have 6 outstanding contracts right now that we're completing. So I'm grabbing them younger because my agenda has nothing to do with the financial side of it. I thoroughly enjoy representing players. There's a personal satisfaction in being part of someone's journey to success. I correlate it to being a coach. So we're all 3 pickleball coaches here. And those moments when you kind of see the light go off in your students' eyes and you see they're achieving something that, they've been knocking their head against a wall, trying to figure out how to get to that next level. It's the same with developing these kids. There's a keen sense of responsibility in developing players. I have a pretty extensive coaching background outside of pickleball. I'm a 2nd degree black belt in Ryuku Kempo.
I will not cross your path.
We'll see. I don't know. I'm kind of like a slug probably now. It's been a minute or two since I've had to utilize those skills. So, but when I was teaching kids back then, I was in my 20s probably. I didn't realize how much I would enjoy it. So I went on to I coached 7 years of my kids' soccer team. I'm just, it's just who I am. I'm a coach, and I enjoy that piece of it. So as an agent, you get to kind of do that same thing. You get to believe in a kid, and it's some of their first interactions and people really invest in them outside of their family. And so that's a very special relationship to to be able to be cheering as if you're part of their family, but you're not. So it's a very genuine relationship that I develop with these young players. And, being a parent myself, it's not easy to trust the influence of anyone around your kids. And so it's helped me being a mom to know, I know what I would want as a parent. I've got so many parents that call me and they're like, could you just make them do this?
Well, you know what? I was about to say, we were talking the other day, and I remember when you were talking about the parenting thing in your role, you were clarifying, I'm not being the parent.
Right.
But it was hysterical because you were telling us the story about, but if I come over and say, hey, could you put your shoes over here? The kid's like, oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the mom actually does it. They're like, why? So
they're an absolute delight when I ask them.
Absolutely.
I think it's actively listening to, because usually when there's a difference of opinion between a parent and, a youth player, it's more about the parent is geared towards, I see the big picture and I find this beneficial because of this. But the child also has to have they are the person having to carry out the order. And so, I see parents wanting to kind of influence paddle companies. And I'm like, listen, they like what they like. And, I want to and I break down, why do you like this paddle? Is it because everybody's playing with it? Is it because you saw a commercial and it said, I'm the most powerful paddle? And when I've assessed that the opinion of the youth player comes from a place of, correct information, then my job is now to go back to the parent and say, we're building a pro here. And to build a pro, we'll have to respect some of the decisions that pro is making. And we have to allow room for them to fumble a little bit. You have to be able to get back up.
Sure.
And that's kind of what, I will say this, it is difficult watching children, for lack of a better word, take on the qualities, because you have a developing mind, a developing emotional well-being in play, and they're coming from an environment probably where they were top dogs. And so now you're going into an environment where you're going to lose a whole lot. You might not win the whole year. And then there's this pressure because it's expensive. I mean, what is it, like $700 and some odd dollars to play qualies right now? I mean, listen, hats off to these families.
And for anyone who doesn't know, it's a qualification round to get into the main draw. And the cost Kim just mentioned, that's one event.
That's one event. And so it can be a quick moment for there. So you have to, when you see these up and coming pros, we all have to respect the families that are supporting these kids, because these are huge sacrifices. They usually have multiple kids. God forbid one of the other kids aren't playing pickleball. It's like, you don't get to eat this week. You see these dynamics.
Ramen noodles for you.
Yes, exactly. Like, sorry, it's your brother's playing pro. You can't have interest. So, I look at that again from a parent. If one of my kids were pursuing this, thank God that they don't want to. But if one of my kids were pursuing this, it is such a dedication that has to come from the family. And that turns into part of the selling point to paddle contracts is I speak equally about the family. Here's the family you're getting, here's their support system. Here's how they travel. Here's how they pay for things. Because these are key elements on if they're going to be successful or not. But, trying to get families to understand, the happy-go-lucky days where the kids are winning and you're taking medal pictures, those are going to be few and far between. Are you ready for that? Are you ready to see your child struggle? Is your child ready to struggle? And because you know what, it's perfectly fine. And I recommend, you'll see me recommend it a lot. Step back and play 5-0. Build, if you need a little more time to develop that social intelligence, that emotional intelligence, things like that. That is, I would rather you have a strong foundation, because once you step into it, it's coming at you fast, every direction. Sponsors. So
it sounds like you're really talking about like setting expectations, but what I like and what I'm hearing is not just for that kid, but also for the family, right?
we know in sport anyway, women, women coaches, we're trying to build that ecosystem. So my curiosity is how does it feel kind of being that female in this industry, doing what you're doing?
I think it just never becomes relevant for me. I've worked coming from a military environment. I'm used to being the youngest in the room and probably the least experienced in the room. But I always say I would rather sit with greatness and accept who I am at that point and accept that I'm still growing in certain areas than to be the chief of the table. And in this industry, I had to develop, one of the personal challenges I had is to accept I have the exact experience to be successful here. When you come from an environment where you're not motivated by participation awards and hugs and rainbows and kittens and things like that. When you come from that environment, it's, it feels more satisfying to earn it. Are there people more experienced in certain areas? Always. There will always be. But when you're developing a business, what draws you and separates you from other people becomes so personal to you. And for me, it's, I want to do right by people. I want a family environment for my players. We share resources. You see my players partner a lot at, a lot of events. I talk openly and they support each other. Because it is a very isolating road. People think that it's not, but you can't really, even as I can't really understand what it's like to be on grandstand trying to play and hit a bloody drop shot. I can't really understand that. So that is an element I'm missing to give the players. So I give it by having other players connect so that they have this sense of community within Ignite that supports them. But it's, being a female to me, like I said, I have two brothers. We were all just,
I feel you there.
I love working, it's unpopular opinion. I love working with men in a lot of ways because they're not emotional creatures. I'm not a super emotional creature. I love to say, screw you and move on. And so I don't actually say that. But I think it. No, I'm kidding.
No, you're not kidding. You're not kidding.
Oh. But I like the pace of the not to insult. I don't mean this insulting, but the simplicity of the male thought process. It's right back at it. I don't have the emotional energy sometimes for certain dynamics. But man, don't we all love a fierce female coming into the business world who's tackled raising a family and taking on corporate America and building and this and that, because you're always feeling guilty about the thing you're not at. So when I'm working, I have parent guilt. And when I'm parenting, I have work guilt. And I had to come to the realization, you know what? I'm knocking it out of the park. I got to stop thinking I'm not doing it. So none of my kids are in jail.
Right. Good.
Everybody's successful and healthy. And again, I say it back. It's all in how you define success. My kid, like with my son is alive. He's healthy and he's setting goals for himself. What more could I possibly ask for?
It starts with the parenting, right? I mean, let's not skip over his influence.
Well,
right?
I mean, listen, I'm shocked how normal they are. But I've always raised my kids in we're realists in our family, and we all have a very developed sense of humor. Probably from trauma, but we have a developed sense of humor, and humor you will overcome so much if you can step back and just laugh about the ridiculousness of life sometimes.
Yeah. And you said this yesterday, you said you have to keep that joy in it, and pickleball does that, I think, inherently, but reminding yourself of that sometimes.
Yeah, I have to do it as a player. I just started. I wish you all could see me stand up and kind of groan when I stand up, because I decided yesterday I was going to play 4 hours of pickleball, and the day before. And when I first started, that's how I played. I played about 6 hours a day. I played in the morning every night. And then I started, the business side, and I kind of really digress playing a lot. But it is important for me to keep personal goals as a player too. And so I've said, I've got a lot of stressful situations surrounding different dynamics in life right now. And it's important for me to focus on a goal as a player. I'm still somebody. I'm still wanting to achieve this. And my only goal in this sport as a player is to be respected as a player. I don't need a rating or a this or a that. I just want to walk on the court and say, yeah, I wouldn't mind playing with her. I'm getting there.
Well, no doubt. And I think that, as much as you've done, not as much as you've done a ton with the business and helping other people. And you mentioned now about playing. I mean, the reality is you do have a tournament history. You have competed. You may the respect is what your ultimate goal is, but you've worn a medal around your neck too.
Yeah. I've had a good run in pickleball. I think that, we all like achieving that. Those $5 medals, they do still mean something to us because I'm 44 years old, for heaven's sake. The fact that I'm making it out here competing in anything is amazing to me because, the one thing about this sport, a lot of us are coming from the couch. We've been bitch for years and, we just jump back and it literally, for not to have a pun there, ignited something in us that
Absolutely.
we haven't felt in years. And so to feel like a competitor and to feel so physically capable of something, that's what's addictive in pickleball. It's that.
And I'll add to that, for me, you mentioned coming off the couch. So not only that, but like for me, I played Division I basketball and towards the end of my career, I had a back injury. And so that was the end of it. And so for 25 years, I was off being a business consultant.
Right.
And until this came upon me, was introduced to me or came upon me as well. So it's also just waking that inner athlete and I had unfinished business, that's how I looked at it. I had unfinished business because I didn't get to finish my basketball career and pickleball gave that to me. So, it gets us off the couch and it gives us a second chance if we happen to be someone that lost the first chance and whether injury or some other event or what have you.
One of the parts, is I run a lot of tournaments throughout the year and I'm always most impressed with the 80 plus division. I'm like, holy crap, I struggle getting to my mailbox today. And these people are out here competing and I have just such admiration for people who like I'm looking ahead going, gosh, it's getting harder physically every year. They're still running the race as if they still have several miles left. And I love that spirit about people. I do hold my breath while they're competing, that I'm not having to give them CPR or anything. But beyond that, it's completely admirable.
Well, it's been super to learn so much about your journey, but also just the insights, because let's face it, how many people get the opportunity to learn, that there's a female agent who's created an agency with an incredible background, ridiculous enthusiasm, contagious laughter and humor. It really is, but we don't get that insight. You never hear about it. I'm sure people aren't even aware in some cases. Our following are not the pros. That's not our target audience, right? So the people that we love and enjoy doing this podcast for and with probably aren't very aware of these things. So it's been awesome to learn more about it, to have you on the show. But I also want to give you a chance to shout out to one particularly special brand of equipment. So here you go. Plug it.
Thank you. I am still heavily sponsored with Gamma Pickleball. I love working and collaborating with them. They are just making such strides in the sport, not just stateside, but internationally. I'm excited to see what the next 2 years holds for them, because I think they're exploding everywhere. This last year they had an opportunity to restructure a little bit, and they are still pursuing their tennis roots and adding padel to their environment. So I think it's super exciting to see them grow in that way and really kind of take on the label of a racket sport company as opposed to just pickleball. But they've just been absolutely amazing to work with. They keep us with great gear. They're very attentive to us, and they're a very family oriented company. And I've really appreciated working with them the last 2 years. I re-signed with them this last year. Pretty easy decision because we've had nothing but good things to say about them.
Well, when you said family, it became a no-brainer in my mind just from getting to know you better through here. So, well, certainly just absolutely thrilled that you are on the show, but more so that you're, again, kicking off our season 1. I think you set the tone. You've set the bar pretty good for the next guest. But I do want to say, Pickle Gal listeners, you can follow Ignite Management Group on Facebook. That's really a fantastic opportunity to support the athletes that Ignite Management is behind and celebrating and promoting, and really providing opportunities and bringing opportunity together. So please, Ignite Management Group, give them a follow on Facebook to keep up with all things pickleball and signees and all the fun that goes with that. Until next time, we are not going to announce our next guest yet. We can't give it all away too soon, but that announcement will coming soon. Thanks everybody for joining us today. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
And for now, court is adjourned.